Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Let's Remember Suikoden 3. We have made our way over the super annoying mountain path to the town slash village of Lebuke, where we will start to learn more about Geddoe's past and a little bit more about the Firebringer. We encountered the masked bishop, the antagonist of the game. And we're going to see a little bit about how this game handles Franz as a character, Franz. And sort of this notion of what it means to collaborate with foreigners or anything like that. Franz. I'm not Harmonian, right? He says, but he looks Harmonian. He takes on a Harmonian name, but he's trying to appease Harmonia in order to stay on their good side, because Harmonia is this big, powerful nation, theocratic state that it's the most powerful nation in all of the Suikoden lore. And it's interesting to have a game that broaches the topic of, why somebody would possibly, to all intents and purposes, defect to the enemy. And, the idea is, okay, well, we're going to appease them. We're going to show them that we're useful so that when they come in and they annex this territory, they will let us maintain some degree of autonomy. For as lacking as games can be in many cases, in almost all cases, I would be inclined to say, there are plenty of times where games approach the idea of sort of more complicated notions of I can barely think of the words for it, but more complicated notions when it comes to certain things. In this case, we're not just talking about complicated motivations for war. We're talking about complicated motivations for trying to avoid war and the actions that that causes. And I'm very glad the game does that. I'm very glad that the game offers various perspectives on how to approach all of these things. And we see Sarah, the mysterious witch that was present at the attack on the Karya village. So it's just this big pileup of all these things happening. Geddoe's chapters are sort of like solving a mystery, right? It's a lot of uncovering the mystery of just exactly who Geddoe is, but then also who are all these people that are affecting the circumstances surrounding the conflict that we're seeing. I want to see if I can buy any stuff. These are just trade shops. Do I have anything to sell? I don't. That's a bummer. I probably don't even have that much money, which is also another bummer. So instead we will just progress with the story, which I hope is keeping people intrigued. I can walk up here and I can see Franz. Franz and Iku. Iku? I say Iku. That's just me. You can say whatever you want. I can't stop you. This is already recorded. You can say whatever you like to me right now. How dare you? Just goofing around. So this is all a personal thing again, where we were talking about how Suikoden tries to impress its game space through the interactions that you have with its people, or the interactions that these people have. So we have Franz, who has a decent motivation for what he's doing, and then somebody who he cares for, asking him, like, why are you doing this? Some people are saying that you've been bribed, or that you just do it because you want to have a more comfortable lifestyle, right? But, for him, and it becomes clear as we move forward, his motivation is really to protect the people that he cares about and the village that he cares about. But we can talk to Iku. She says, "Was there a glint of shame in your eyes right there?" Which is actually interesting to note once we finally know what Geddoe's story is. But we'll get there. So the bishop is with the woman who helped, or was present when the Karya village was destroyed. So again, it's just a question of like, who is this person? What are their motivations? What's all going on? I think that for all of the slow pace that Geddoe's Chapter 1 has, Chapter 2 has a lot of interesting implications for the broader story that go on from there. I also just want to keep on noting the notion of Harmonia as a theocracy. It's the holy kingdom of Harmonia. Bishops are generals and all of that. I'm a big fan of just sort of the way that this game doesn't necessarily go all out to like info dump you with everything and be like, Harmonia's like, I don't need a lore codex to sort of understand what Harmonia's deal is. The game does a good enough job explaining it through the character interactions and sort of what is being said. You know, it means something that there is a person named a bishop leading a bunch of troops. And, you know, saying, hey, when this next war comes, follow me, and everything will do that. You know, follow me, follow the holy kingdom of Harmonia. And, you know, and this is some exposition stuff, you know. The southern regional army of the holy kingdom of Harmonia has already crossed into the frontier of the grassland. So Harmonia is already pressing into the grassland, which is already in turmoil because of its conflict with Zexen. So you have these two forces that are opposing each other, and then a third party comes in and affects them. And it's pretty interesting to me. And there's also this matter of, you know, the people of Lebuke were grasslanders originally. I think this is the Saphir clan, and they're asking them to go after the Chisa clan. But I don't know. But again, it's this motivation of, you know, what matters? Is it the comfort of just your single village and your clan, or is it the security of all of your people? Do you protect just your folk, or do you do the right thing and sort of try and resist, even though resistance, while noble, might actually amount to greater pain for yourself and for others? These are interesting questions to have, and it's not anything other than just like sort of tossed to the player as motivations for why characters are doing things, and then you can sort of judge what you think about what's going on, whether Franz is in the right or in the wrong or anything like that. It's sort of nice. Isla sort of comes back. This is sort of a weird thing where it's like, I think it wanted us to follow her, but I talked to Franz and Iku instead. So there's just a teeny tiny bit of like scripting that's a little off here, but I'm not a fan of it. But this used to be a Grasslander village. This is the village that was allowed to live. And this is when they give you a little bit of actual exposition. You know, they were granted permission to exist so long as they were in the service of Harmonia. Like, that's sort of one of the terms of the ceasefire that happened, is like they had this territory, Harmonia can keep this territory, but now I want to find, if I can, or maybe I'm not able to right now because I haven't gone to probably because I haven't gone to Buduk Castle. There's a character here that I can recruit, but because I have no place to like technically recruit them to, there's nothing I can do yet. I probably should have visited Buduk during like Chris's chapter or something, because that also affects what happens. There's another character that we can play as named Thomas, who's actually the lord of that castle. But because I've been sort of plowing through with the story, I've avoided some of that. I'm not sure if I'll play Thomas's chapters. It's tempting. They are interesting in the sense that they provide a little bit more context for everything that's going on, but at the same time, they feel a little side story-ish. I'm not entirely a fan of that. If only because the way that it's handled is... Suikoden is based very loosely off of... Off a Japanese story. Not Japanese, it's a Japanese game, but it's a weird, vague approximation of a Chinese tale called Water Margin, or Shuihunjuan. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I always forget. The Zhuan, I always get wrong. But it's a tale about 108 outlaws that hide out in a marsh to form an army. And then they're granted amnesty by the government and head on a bunch of campaigns to fight rebel forces and things like that. And every character is assigned to a star, and one of them is the Tenkai star, which I think is actually the Star of Heaven. And the Tenkai star in most games in Suikoden is the protagonist. In this case, in Suikoden 3, the Tenkai star is Thomas, the owner of the castle, which makes sense because in Water Margin, the Tenkai star is actually just, I think it's a lord as well. So like this follows an approximation of those things a little closer. But it sort of bucks the trend of what's been going on previously in the series as to what constitutes like the Tenkai star, which sounds like a dumb thing to be like, well, it's different, but in terms of what's sort of previously established by the form, this game sort of moves away from that. And the implications of it are vaguely interesting, if only because of what it says of like, okay, so for all intents and purposes, a phrase that I abuse too much, the main protagonist of this story is eventually whoever you decide it is. So because of that, the Tenkai star in this game can't be like the quote-unquote protagonist, because there's not just like a straight-up protagonist character like in Suikoden 5 or Suikoden 2. Instead, it's just it's somebody else that can unite all these people to a single location, because eventually an army will gather to resist other forces and all these other things. I don't want to give away too much, but also it's like I don't care about it to a great extent. The storylines do converge, and they converge in the face of a common foe, but it's definitely complicated further than that. But this idea of, we have in Suikoden 3 a story that is definitely calling back to its vague source material a lot stronger than, at least in a literal sense of like what each star represents, right? It's sort of nice. Let's keep on going. Because there's also, like, all the stars have different, like, names to them. So, like, I know that the 6th star, I can't even pronounce it, so I won't even try. It's like the Chanjuan star or something. But it's the majestic star. And then, like, what is it? Like, star, I want to say star 97 is the detective star, right? And so, like, every character who is the 97th star, which is, what is it? Dicha, if I'm pronounce. I remember how it's spelt phonetically. There's always a detective in these games, and so that detective is always assigned to that star. So there are some recurring formal things that happen in Suikoden, not just sort of the larger lore repetitions and characters that return, but also just like you will always have a detective. You will always have like a ninja character. You will always have somebody who sort of specializes in like there's like a gambler, and then there's like a mechanist and things like that, and they all correspond to the correct star. We'll see that sort of once I vaguely pop in and out every now and then with characters that I've recruited, and then also when I finally can actually see the 108 star tablet, which is something that happens later on. So we have an option here, which is very nice. I can either sit and listen to a ton of the exposition from Iku, which I don't want to do, or I can go and try and do some snooping. So I want to go and do some snooping, which actually can lead to some interesting stuff. I like this choice, and then I like the way they represent it in, of all things, the manga of Suikoden 3. It's sort of Geddoe walking around at night, and Sarah, I think it happens in this game too. I think Sarah can change into a cat, but there's this nice scene. It's humorous, but then you realize exactly what you're dealing with, of Geddoe just like having the perception to be like, someone is watching me. Like, Geddoe just knows his shit. I like that a lot. Is it this cat? Is that you, cat? Don't trust you. No, but we want to go and eavesdrop, I think, over here. Or not? Oh, this just opens and, like, there's just, like, a space here. There's only so many places I can go inside of Lebuke, so I'm not that worried about, like, being like, oh, I don't know exactly where I am. Frame rate gets a little busted here. Oh, I can rest at the inn. I should do that after. That's where I came from. Let's try heading upwards. But yeah, I haven't really sat and talked about the Stars of Destiny yet. In anything approaching a meaningful context. But yeah, it's alongside something like Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Water Margin is one of those big Chinese epics that people should read. Romance of the Three Kingdoms is better. If only because Romance of the Three Kingdoms is this really interesting account of like how history has become just like so mythologized. Zhao Yun runs off and tries to get his lord's child, and he returns with the child, and the lord is so angry that his prized general would risk himself that he throws the child to the ground. A story which probably did not happen, to say nothing about the way that Guan Yu in those stories. And this is not just like, you can also experience this by playing the Dynasty Warrior games. Those are ridiculous, but like that's a weird good video game example of how like the source material translates to something absolutely insane, even though the source material itself is also insane. Like, I'm sure that the historical Zhuge Liang was a fine enough tactician, and in Suikoden 5, your tactician actually has a feathered fan, just like he was purported to have. But all of those stories are ridiculous, which is why I like Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Water Margin, I actually don't remember much. I just sort of remember the connection to the stars. So I've been talking over all of this intrigue, but, you know, we'll deal with it. I want to get through Geddoe's chapter at a relatively brisk pace. I can imagine that this will only take us one more segment, 2 more segments at the most. We'll see. Where the hell is Iku's place? Is her place the inn? Oh, duck! Hey, duck. We're gonna rest, though. No, actually, I'm gonna rest once I have everybody back in my party. What am I thinking? Because I want to make sure that not only is everybody at full health, but I also want to make sure that Queen has another charge of her wind attack. Because we are going to risk... At the end of this chapter, I can actually avoid a boss fight. I can just be like, hey, let's not. But instead... Instead, I will risk the battle. So I'm supposed to talk to Iku. But where do I go? I want to climb this ladder. Oh, this is where like all the Mantor trainers are. There's Franz. Yep, nice talking to you too, buddy. Geesh. A little harsh. I was too busy talking about random things, or vaguely tangential things that I definitely lost track of what I was doing. I think we left from here. This building. Yeah, we walked out and the cat was there. Aha. It's a back room. I was like, this is odd. The insect trainers who protect the altar are also being deployed. So there's some altar on the mountain that is being left unguarded. The Flame Champion, Matthias, as we have chosen to call him, built an altar at the north and asked it to be protected. So we're going to get a little bit more information about that as we go on. Because we're going to head up to the altar, try and figure out what's going on, try and get there before the bishop does. The altar of the Flame Champion. Iku will join you for now. Awesome. Need to go to the inn and heal, desperately. Also, my goodness, is my laptop getting very loud right now. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about equipment stuff. Not to bore you too long for that, but boy oh boy. Is it tricky to get a setup that isn't, I wish I could kill all of the noise. But I cannot, alas. What a bummer. Let's save. You can see my last save was at the very start of this chapter, which is insane. Insanity. Imagine if I died on the mountain and had to go all the way back to the start of the chapter. Look how much time has elapsed since the start. At least nearly 2 hours of dialogue and other things. Maybe an hour, a little bit more. But we want to go to the mountain. They're going to join up with the main force to attack other grasslanders, which is a total bummer. And we are going to try and get to the mountain, the mountain altar before anything else. Iku and Franz. Not quite star-crossed lovers, but you know. She doesn't agree with his sort of complicity with Harmonia, but you know. It's one of those. It's a nice little side quest. Feel, or side story rather. side quests in this game don't tend to be anything more than windows into characters, even when it is like a recruitment side quest. There's an amazing side quest in Suikoden 2, but it requires you to beat the game or progress to a certain point in the game in under 6 hours. And also finding the initial NPC that starts that quest is random. You have to go in and out of the town and hope that they're there. But it is very interesting. It's a lot of intrigue about two gunners who work for something called the Howling Voice Guild. And there aren't many guns in Suikoden, and only this guild has control over guns, and it's a very cool side quest. And we will actually meet in Chris's chapter the previous character that I mentioned who knew Joker from Suikoden was also somebody who was a member of the Howling Voice Guild for a time. He will not be using a gun, unfortunately, nor will he be using his amazingly cool whip swords that he used in Suikoden. We'll talk about him when the time comes, but I like having all these characters crisscross and intersect. So let's head to the altar. I like what Queen says there. I went past it real quick. She says, "Stay tough, girl." It's awesome. It's weird that they do a thing where it's like she entered your party and left your party for that. But it's a good example of a game system being very literal. Like, oh, this person is walking with you down the road. I guess they're in your party. So let's get to the mountain. And if I progress through that mountain, it will be its own segment. So Geddoe's chapter might actually end up only being 3 chapters. And I hope you don't hate me for going on that huge tangent about all the different stars in the game. But we'll see once we finally get the star tablet. It will be very, very interesting to sort of see who corresponds to what star and what it all means. Here we go. We are going to make our way up to the altar. And along the way, I'll sort of talk about stuff. Hopefully. That's the point of a Let's Play. In fact, on the way up, I want to talk about Let's Plays, is what I will do. I will talk about Let's Plays in the next segment. So, I will see you in the next video. I love you very much. Hey, I'm Geddoe. Look at me. Ready? Whoa, 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 whoa. I will see you next time. Bye.